All right, welcome to the 635 podcast. Today I'm here with Ron Smith.
What's going on, man? We're back.
Yeah. All right, and today what are we talking about?
Got a couple articles, one from Wall Street Journal, both from Wall Street Journal, how Gen Z is becoming the Toolbelt Generation.
Gen Z, the Toolbelt Generation. Yeah. All right. First, okay, so here's the article, how Gen Z is becoming the Toolbelt Generation. First, let's clarify, what is Gen Z? Or Gen Z.
For what I understand, I saw it's 11 to 26, the ages.
11 to 26.
11 to 26.
All right.
If I'm not mistaken, the last thing I saw. So they don't define that in here, but the information I saw, they're the younger.
All right.
So right before millennials maybe, but 11 to 26 is that age group.
I like that because that's the student. That's basically our students.
Oh, for
right?
sure, definitely.
That's students, and also that's also my son.
Okay.
He just turned 13.
Oh, okay, good.
So,
there you go.
And we are talking. It's interesting because we are having these conversations about, you're going to go to college or not, and his mom's like, of course you're going to go to college, and I'm kind of like, well, I don't know. A lot can change.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That is a big discussion right now amongst families as far as like, should their kids go to college for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
This one was talking more economics and stuff, but obviously in other articles from New York Times and such that talk about other aspects like ideologies or whatever. So a big discussion going on in households right now.
Okay, so we have this article from the Wall Street Journal. Gen Z is becoming the Toolbelt Generation. What is this talking about here? Run us through this article.
So the crux is that basically you have this generation. They no longer are looking to do like professional jobs, basically white collar jobs. Mm-hmm. They're moving towards more technical jobs. Some literature calls it career and technical education, CTE. They're also obviously called the Toolbelt Generation, but they're basically doing welding and what you would consider hard labor jobs. Mm-hmm. But there's a stigma that used to be behind these jobs, like, oh, you're just a troublemaker, or you're not good enough to make it through college, so you're doing that route. But now it's becoming more pristine and more perhaps not as stigmatized as it was before, and you make more money perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in the 80s to Asian parents, I remember my mom saying, "Don't be like those people." And what she meant, and it's funny thing is, what she meant by those people were the white kids, whose parents had pickup trucks and parked out front of their house. And my mom's like, "No, you go to college. You're not going to be those people." And so things are kind of changing. So what is this article saying?
Speaking of, kind of just to piggyback off what you said, when you go later in the article, one of the counselors at this particular high school in Wisconsin said that for years, students would call people that worked in those technical areas of the school, they were called vocational education wing, the Greaser Hall. They would call them, they believed they were ne'er-do-wells, troublemakers. They wound up there. Mm-hmm. So that there's always been, and I remember being in this type of thought process when I was in high school, like, oh, you work in mechanics, like you must be in trouble. You can't do stuff.
The kids in wood shop and metal shop, right?
Yeah. So there was a stigma behind this.
I remember that because the kids who were there, they were back in my day, they were the stoners, the stoner kids with these denim jackets, and they would listen to heavy metal.
Yeah, I took wood shop, and I met people like that. But now, I mean, especially with robotics or whatnot, it's making it a lot more, I don't want to say, pristine. I can't even think of another word, but it's looking like, oh, that's something I want to do or whatever. It's not looked down upon. It's actually looked at like something to aspire to.
That's interesting, a connection with robotics, because I remember my son did join the robotics team, and it's one of those things that they are working with their hands, but there's this extra element, at least supposedly, that it's a little more intellectual and high tech and cutting edge. So maybe that is sort of the bridge, the missing link between sort of working with your hands and more intellectual pursuits.
And this young lady, Elizabeth Valerio, she talked about, it's a young lady, she's working in construction, and she's talking about basically how she's using like this robot or whatever for the landscape. Again, this is construction, to basically do work, whatever. So she's not working on her hands necessarily. She's actually working with a robot in the construction field.
Yeah. I've actually seen that here at ACC. The little
the lawnmower.
Yeah, the slope, because our lawns are sloped, very pretty steep, and you don't want a regular lawnmower. So they had this like little drone.
You saw that too?
Yeah, some guy with a remote control. Yeah,
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and actually, when we had a tree cut down from our house, some guy also had this remote thing that to like grind up the stump or something. So it's definitely like Star Wars territory where you're having like astrobots and
yeah, this guy was saying that, you know, just graduating high school and perhaps going to a technical school, he's figuring to make 6 figures being a welder.
Wow.
Right? So, I mean, that's something that I would like to look into if I wasn't where I'm at. But this whole notion, the younger generation, what they're doing, they're like, hey, I don't want to go to college like traditional. I want to get a job where I can make money right away and where I can essentially, you know, put something together. For instance, this young lady, she said that she loves the feeling of getting to build something. All right. So she feels that's the lady that was working with the robot. So you're having a sense of like, man, I'm building something. I'm, you know, making something where you can see it and I have a play in that as an individual.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it is easy to fall into sort of this pit where you're learning stuff and you're reading about stuff, but you're not really, you know, I mean, at most you're in typical academic circles, you're writing papers and things like that, but you're not necessarily, you know, building something that you could sort of see the fruits of your labor.
That's true. So, and I kind of feel like that. I kind of look like we're artists. I feel like I'm an artist as an academic. You know, I'm trying to paint a picture of the textbook and of the theory. So personally, I do get satisfaction out of it, but I also want to say this. They keep talking about money in here and say, hey, you can make more money, et cetera, et cetera. I always tell my students, hey, make sure you get a job that you love and not just for the money. Yeah. All right. These people in here, in terms of the younger generation that is moving towards that tool belt aspect, they not doing it for the money. They love what they're doing. Yeah. So I think that's important as well. Why go to college, you know, to get a 4-year degree if that's not something that you feel like you want to do just to do it? But if you can do something that you love and make money at the same time, hey, go for it for sure.
And it's funny that because there are a lot of me and my family end up watching these I guess reality shows where people are doing stuff. They're like cooking. They're cooking shows. There are, you know, mechanic shows where people are, or there's building something, right? Somebody will be building a piece of furniture. It's sort of like a YouTube challenge of, can I, you know, take this pallet wood and turn it into a table and then turn around and sell it, you know, in like 3 days or something. And it's I could see that it's really, a lot of people can see that and sort of be really inspired.
And if anything transpires as far as like, you know, power goes off or something like this, perhaps these people be more equipped to like know how to build things, you know, take care of things, as opposed to people that don't know how to do any of those, like myself or whatever.
Well, you know, when I saw this article that you showed me, you know, actually the first thing that popped to my mind was an episode of South Park. I don't know if you've seen that episode of South Park.
I haven't watched too much South Park.
I forgot how I managed to watch it. I forgot what it's on, but it's very recent. And the storyline, it was actually kind of brilliant because the storyline was now AI is taking over and all like the brainy jobs have been taken over by AI. And the only jobs left were like handyman jobs. and nobody knows how to fix anything in their house. And so handyman services are in high demand. And then all the handyman and sort of the manual laborers, they end up getting paid more, and then they become the ruling elite of the world of handyman.
Good. That's real good.
It was a total turnaround, and but yeah, I mean that was actually quite powerful commentary.
No, and kind of speaking of which, they're talking again the rise of AI. All right, so these blue collar jobs, they're offering also job security. So one of the biggest things is after the pandemic or during the pandemic, you know, certain jobs we shut down, right? And the other jobs, like the more manual labor, quote unquote jobs, they were still going or whatever because perhaps they were essential or not. So that's another thing that these young people are looking at, like, hey, well, this job is going to be something I can, you know, have through thick and thin, no matter what happens or whatever.
Yeah.
So
no, absolutely. I mean, there was that, and then there's, you know, some jobs are absolutely, you know, essential. The ones that, you know, are done with their hands, medical field, even in the medical fields like nursing and things like that. I mean, you are, you know, directly interacting with people. So that, you know, it goes from blue collar, but then it, you know, there are plenty of fields, even something like dentistry, which is, a very academic field and stuff, but, you're there in person.
And you still working with your hands.
Yeah.
You're working with your hands. And, my wife always tells me, hey, make sure you have a backup just in case the professor thing don't work out. But I'm a great professor, so I don't see how it's not going to work out. But make sure you have a backup. I'm like, man, what can I do? I guess I could work through K through 12, but maybe growing up, my aunt and stuff, they made me work in the yard and do all manual labor and stuff. I guess it's kind of like Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. It's going to teach you stuff for later. But I never liked all that manual labor stuff. So, and my dad, he was a barber, right? He worked with his hands. My brother was a barber. He works right now. He's a mechanic for UPS. My brother. So they work with the hands. And I was like, I always wanted to work with my mind. But now I can kind of see there's a shift towards that younger generation where they're saying, hey, I'll work with my hands. And they talk about how their body can break down and stuff, but there's always trade-offs or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, and part of it is, there's not necessarily a division between working with your body and your mind. I mean, there's a lot of problem solving and when dealing with like, auto mechanics or any other types of mechanics. Now I guess like robot repair is going to be big.
Oh, that's true.
One of my cousins got a job in Amazon maintaining and repairing the robots.
Oh, wow.
Right. So, it's as automation takes over, there's still going to be, so far until they make robots that can walk in, which who knows where that is.
The singularity, for sure. The singularity. But no, I mean, that is a good thought process when you said who's going to be taking care of the robots. Right. So that's pretty interesting. So, I mean, it's a lot to go here. The main thing that I will take away from this is that we're shifting from, high white collar, thought process, use your mind type of jobs per se to like, hey, you can use your hands. That's what I kind of got from it. And you can make money doing that as well.
And did the story mention about where they're going for training? Like, what is the training process?
Community college is one of the biggest ones.
There we are.
Community college, and you see, we walk around here like my office is right below the welder, and the welding shop. Those guys are awesome. They're super smart. The professors, not even taking anything away from those guys, but you see, I wonder what the number is. I don't have the number off the top of my mind. What is the percentages of students that are in those programs, like the technical programs?
That's a good question. I'm totally siloed out into the academic world.
Yeah, me too.
But there's definitely, we have so many different certification programs.
Big time. A lot of my students are certification. I don't know if it's the welding or what it can be. A lot of them, I have nursing students, of course, but as far as like particularly the welding part down there in that area, I wonder how, I know we got a lot of dual credit students, obviously, but I work in a prison as well. That's part of it. But what percentage is in the welding, that technical part? That's something that I would look up.
I want to see, how that's going to change over time and what the motivation of this is. I mean, I wonder at what point we're going to start seeing parents, telling their children, oh, accounting, that's all going to be automated. No, go do welding or higher end, some type of oil or something in the oil industry, or
everything you're saying is in here. Yeah, because the parents was like, hey, they wanted their kid to go to traditional college, but then the parents start opening up to these technical careers. And the dad at the end of this was like, hey, well, he's going to end up knowing more than me, but the kid is going to a community college to essentially do the technical part.
Yeah.
So, I mean, parents are starting to realize, and I know people personally that are like, hey, I'd rather my kids get a technical degree, work with their hands, as opposed to go to college with all the stuff going on with the college. But so that's pretty much the gist of that.
Yeah, and that's getting me to think, as I'm having my kid and he's I'm deciding, which direction should I kind of nudge him towards. Maybe that sort of diversification.
For sure.
Because right now he is kind of on the just academic track, right? But I didn't think maybe he should have some experience, working with his hands, doing something, in person, and at least get him comfortable in case, in case that's where the trend is.
Yeah, me and my wife, we pushed my daughter to college to get a degree, and we'll go from there. But, maybe she want to be a teacher, who knows? But do she want to do something else? Like my sister, she's a beautician. She does hair. So I have a lot of my family that is in the whole technical work with their hands, where I'm pushing my people to do more academic aspects. So I'm like you. We'll see. She's only 6, so we'll see where she wants to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that you're going to have to revisit, every once in a while, because the world's going to look so different in 12 years.
The technology, just alone.
Yeah.
So, they may have replace us or whatever. I doubt it, but
I mean, speaking of that, like, one thing I noticed is that I still get these students who, even something like, dual enrollment students, a lot of times they can't meet on campus. And then I'm always like, okay, well, we can just meet virtually through Teams and do a virtual thing. And I get students who don't like that. They want some type of in-person, interaction. And so I had one student who literally drove from Pearland High School down to my office hours here.
Wow. That's for real?
I'm like, dude, we could just fire up, the
Teams or whatever.
Yeah, Teams. I got my little stencil, like notepad where I could like show graphs, and I could put that on the screen and stuff. She's like, no, I can't stand that stuff. So
wow.
And there are a lot of students, like that. And so until they make robots that look like us in privilege, who knows when that's going to be, but there's still always going to be this element of people who want that in-person
and same with me. I'd rather do in person than online or whatnot, all day every day. But I can see, I do like having meetings on Teams though.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so I do like having meetings on Teams, but I can see that the interaction personally is very important. I'm big on that, the personal aspect, but.
And then with, so community colleges seem to be playing a big role in this transition.
Big role.
It's going to be funny. What I think is going to be hilarious, and I'm kind of waiting for it, is when universities like, screw it, let's get into this. It's like welding at UH Clear Lake. Like, let's get some of that. I would not be that's where when a true shift happens, when they begin incorporating, traditionally quote unquote vocational stuff into university training.
Well, I would think they have it now. I would think so. And this is all stuff that, I would have to look up. I'm sure that universities would have some type of technical certifications and things like this, perhaps not at the level that we have it here at the community college, but I'm sure they have something.
I bet they have like a hush-hush secret plan, equivalent of nuclear war, like, oh my God, AI takes over and everyone just wants to be a plumber. We got to have a secret plan where, like, guess what? We got a plumbing program.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You learn plumbing, and then you also study the philosophy of plumbing, and I don't know. Maybe they'll try to combine it with maybe the business end.
That'd be good.
Integrate, I mean, if I were them, that's kind of what I'd be thinking of, sort of blend it in with, real world working with your hands.
No, that'd be real good.
All right. Anything else this article mentions about that was interesting?
I mean, again, I just wanted to emphasize the young lady where she said that she loves the feeling to build something. And I wanted to throw a little sociology. Karl Marx talked about alienation. And when industrialized societies, he said, hey, well, they feel no sense of satisfaction, right? By building something that someone else owns. So that's why I say it's very important, man. To these kids, I tell my students, do something that you love, so it won't feel like a job, and that you'll get some satisfaction out of it. Money's always going to come. Yeah. So the main thing that these kids, I felt like in this article, they love what they're doing. The money's going to come for sure. So that's pretty much what I got out of that. And I found a little chart of enrollment growth. This is the one with the chart showing community college, vocational, and four-year institutions. And here we got 2023, we got looks like a 15% increase in vocational-focused community college. Whereas everything else, just regular community college and all four-year institutions is like flatlined. Okay. No growth. I'm looking at this chart. Yeah, it looks like very little growth. One of them is flatlined, and so so it looks like there is an increase in vocational jobs. Yeah, that sounds about right for sure.
And then here, let me just browsing through this article. Rise of generative AI is changing the career calculus for some people. They thought blue jobs offered them better job security than white-collar jobs. They must watch that South Park episode.
And another thing, I mean, it costs so much to go to traditional college, university. That's
yep.
a big one right there too.
Yeah,
you can save a lot more money by going to like a 2-year community college, getting your certification, and then starting up your career faster than going to a traditional college, and then you're like spending out the wazoo, and the prices are rising. Of course, I had a question for you though. When I was looking in here, you work, we're a money guy. You work in the economy. They were talking about in Pennsylvania. Basically, there's been an influx of people wanting to go into these programs, and it says 5 years ago from the trade schools, the association said they made $35,000 a year getting out of trade school. But then it says these days it is closer to $60,000 a year that you can make. Wow. Would you say that's inflation or whatever in terms of?
You would have to. How long ago? What's the comparison?
So it says, in Pennsylvania, the trades have seen an influx of workers since the pandemic. And it says that basically since the pandemic, it says, wow. So that's what, 3 years ago.
That's not enough to cover inflation. That's almost doubling. Where I mean, inflation's been high, but not that high. So that's real. That's a real increase in the wages. Increase. And in this article also mentioned basically job worker shortage, the demand for trade apprenticeships. So it looks like there's been a rise in demand, as well as limited supply of people who can do these things. And that could be related to just, for many decades, we've just had, this belief that you have to go to university and that blue collar work is low prestige, doesn't pay much. And so you don't have as many people going into that. And so the supply of people who can do that is dropped while demand continues to rise. And so it's supply and demand, higher demand, lower supply, that's higher prices, meaning higher wages for those people who can do that. Now, the good news is that as those wages rise, it will hopefully attract people into those. People will look and say, hey, look, I can make, maybe even more being a plumber than I could being, an entry-level white-collar worker. And so you'll start seeing people sort of migrating just because of those, income differentials.
Wow. And that's, kind of, what do you teach?
Mainly macroeconomics.
Yeah, that's good. Because you said that, and I mean, there's so much to take from this, man, this article, but I saw an article a while back that it says, like, homeowners are having sticker shock. This is another article, totally different article. Homeowners are having sticker shock when they have to, like, do repairs to their houses. And then it's like, here it says, basically, you have these shortages, like you said, so when people try to do, get their houses redone or whatever, like they're surprised, like, man, this costs us so much. Why? Because what you said, a shortage of workers, therefore the labor is going to go up in terms of cost. So it says sticker shock homeowners embarking on repairs and renovations in recent years have found that, dang, man, this stuff is crazy. Why is are these prices so high? So you hit right on the head with that.
Yeah. And then looking down, also in this article, it mentions there's this heading called new robotic equipment. And this is interesting also because when workers, even, blue collar workers, when they have better equipment to work with, that increases their productivity. So they can actually produce more using this equipment, and that allows them to command greater pay. And it makes these sort of blue collar jobs actually much more technical, but also much more productive. And if these workers are able to produce more than their counterparts could, 10, 20 years ago, then that will also lead to a rise in their wages.
Sounds like when the computer came on the scene then.
Yeah.
More productivity or whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, and there's always a discussion about, for example, the classic discussion is about spreadsheets. And they were talking about how when they first came out with spreadsheets, a bunch of sort of low-level accountants lost jobs, right? Because the spreadsheet was doing the work of what a normal accountant with a hand calculator. But what ended up also happening is two things. The accountants who kept their jobs and knew how to work with spreadsheets could do so much more and command a greater salary. And then on top of that, when companies began to see the things that you could do with the spreadsheets, like, for example, what they talked about was being able to calculate hypotheticals, like what would happen if we raise the price on this and also our cost of our supplies change this way. And they would say, run these scenarios for me. They were able to use these spreadsheets to do that scenario. So companies, even though spreadsheets allowed the old tasks to be done quicker, they came up with new ways to use sort of accounting using these new tools. in order to answer more questions. And so maybe with better tools, blue collar work will be capable of doing more things, and therefore increasing sort of demand for those types of jobs. So it's always like, they mentioned robotic equipment. The question is that going to replace workers, or is that going to enhance workers?
I would say a little bit of both, man.
Yeah.
I would say a little bit of both for sure. You see that at fast food restaurants, for sure. With the kiosks, you still need employees.
Yeah.
You still need employees to run certain things, but definitely the kiosks are replacing a lot of the human beings working. So I would say a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Some of it is doomsday. We say, oh my gosh, these robots are going to take over jobs, but you can see what you said in terms of your cousin or whatnot, where he's working on a robot. So you're always going to need humans in a sense.
Yeah.
But to the degree how many, that depends.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's so much easier to replace a graphic artist with generative AI than it is to replace a hairstylist with a robot.
Oh,
right,
for sure.
And I mean, even when they can make a robotic hairstylist, I mean, first of all, the cost of that machine would be super high, and like, why would they want to do that when you can have a human willing to do it if you pay them enough? So in a way, as technology rises, it's still, people who are there working physically will still be somewhat protected, in that just what they do with their hands is just so hard to replicate, with robots.
And especially if you're talking about that, I mean, you need the relationship aspect as well. So you're not gonna have a relationship with a robot per se. Just, I go get a haircut, I'm talking to my barber. Will I talk to the robot? I mean, obviously not. But so yeah, I mean, the human component is always going to be there, I would argue. But to what level, that is the question. So yeah. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, that actually reminds me of definitely the human element is something like plumbing. Like, there's something wrong with my sink. Someone's got to come in and start asking me questions, and then testing things out. Like, when did this happen? And then they go through different parts and they do these tests and they're reaching under the sink. There's just so much movement and there's so many questions they have to ask and sort of look around, that having a robot being able to do that, to move around to different locations of the house. I mean, that I've been telling actually my students for over 10 years, like, the job of plumber will be around, 50 years from now. I think we still have plumbers.
Yeah, I mean, they perhaps may use new tools.
Yeah.
But them as an individual, as a particular service, that's definitely going to be human. That makes a lot of sense.